My name is Eric Lashinsky. I'm Chief of Comprehensive Planning for the city in our city's Planning and Zoning Department. We have a bunch of city staff here. Our comprehensive planning team includes Casey in the back, Alexis, and then Swarupa is on current planning. Jeff Wentz is here from Public Works as our traffic engineer. Brian Callahan is from the mayor's office. And Julian is from our TV studio. And Rocio, Rocio from Mayor's office is our Hispanic liaison. I just want to ask if anybody needs Spanish translation, she's here for that, but it appears that we don't. We had some printed materials, one person, okay, thank you. We have some printed materials in Spanish for those folks.
Don't put your hand over your lips, though, because I have to read lips.
Okay, sure. Okay. So before I get in, I just want to remind folks, we have a great website that talks about this project. You could scan the QR code on the poster at the sign-in table, and please make sure to sign in so we can keep you updated. We have a growing email list of folks that all received notice about this meeting, and we're getting the word out as much as we can in other ways. But on this website, we're publishing all the comments we receive. We had a survey up. It's closed, but all the comments we received tonight, all the comments we received at the last meeting a month ago, those are all printed on the wall over there, so you can read those. We have frequently asked questions that I'm going to talk about in a moment. There's a lot of misinformation circulating right now online in the community. We want to address those issues right away. I hope you come away comforted. And just please keep an eye on this website. That's where we post meetings, project updates, presentations. This presentation is already on that website. Doesn't mean you can leave, but yeah. This is, just again, thank you to those who came to our first meeting. I apologize if you didn't hear about it. We had a good turnout. It was probably 40 plus people. We had great conversations and really learned some things. It confirmed some things we already knew. Tonight, a little less chaotic than the first meeting. We had those breakout groups last time. Tonight, we're just going to do a presentation. Be lucky if I can keep it to 15 minutes, but I'll try. But really want to have plenty of time for Q&A. We know you have lots of questions. And then the open house exhibits, basically we've printed all the sheets that have some kind of consequence on the tables. And we want you all to spend some time looking at them and leaving Post-it note comments that we can read and can help inform how we're thinking about this. We know many of you are coming to this project for the first time. You may be concerned. You may have heard things out in the community, online, wherever. I'm going to try to say as succinctly as possible. This Tyler Avenue Complete Community project is something that's happening now because our city council adopted a comprehensive plan, something we do every 10 years. They adopted it last summer. It has a number of citywide goals. And typically what happens after you adopt a comprehensive plan, you try to implement that plan in different ways. This project, because of the importance of the streetscape, we've been hearing people talk about the streetscape issues for quite some time, and it's really high time that we do something about it. That kind of triggered this project. We have an alderperson who wanted to see some revitalization on the street, and we know there are large properties that are, minimally developed, and he was interested in seeing what kind of balance we could strike to create some more housing options that would be in keeping with the neighborhood character today. So that's why we're doing this planning study. We know how great this neighborhood is, how well located it is. We know a lot of people cut through the neighborhood to get to Forest Drive and to Hilltop Lane. How can we make it less of a throughway? That's a big question on our minds. I'm really grateful to have the city's first traffic engineer in many years on board, and we've been working a lot with Jeff to sort of try to figure out what we could do on the street. We did quite a bit of research to understand what the neighborhood is today. You all know it probably better than anybody. We have exhibits near the sign-in that you would have seen at the last meeting. I just want, and feel free to look at those after this, but this is just one image that we had, which is really, I think, powerful. I mean, in the last 100 years, we've gone from farmland to the neighborhood we have today. It has, good things and bad things, but it's going to continue to change. The city can try to control development to some degree, but people own property. They have a right to develop their property. Our job as city planners is to try to steer that development in a way that's compatible with what's there today, so we don't have conflicts, we don't have things that people are unhappy about. And if you look at our zoning code today, there's quite a lot of room for interpretation, and that's a big thing on our minds here. So we came up with some goals for this project. I'm not going to read them, but they're on one of the sheets here, and we want to hear your thoughts. But it's basically streetscape, housing diversity, connecting the community, revitalizing commercial spaces, particularly on Forest Drive, and expanding the tree canopy. That was an eye-opener. Our analysis, there's not a single street tree on Tyler Avenue, which is to me kind of mind-blowing. Doesn't mean that. What?
That's good for us. Because there's no leaking anymore.
Yeah, I could see it has some benefits. Okay. There are some values to not having trees, but there's a lot of health benefits too, and it raises property values.
No, we already have trees in our yard.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't. Okay. Well, we don't have to add any trees. Okay. That's the kind of input we want to hear tonight. So, all right.
We can do something about the traffic.
I'll get to
Cars
that.
go 60 mile an hour and nobody does anything about it.
We're going to let me get through these frequently asked questions before.
Are you gonna have like a Q&A thing?
We are.
You gonna go through this?
I'm going to go through this. Yeah, if you don't mind, just let me get through the presentation, and then we have plenty of time for Q&A. I want to make sure everybody's question is answered. Hopefully you picked up a handout at the sign-in table. These frequently asked questions are specifically aimed at addressing things that we found were circulating on Nextdoor that are totally false. I'm just going to say that right out. Does the city of Annapolis intend to acquire? I'm going to read these just so we're all clear, set the record straight. Does the city of Annapolis intend to acquire properties on Tyler Avenue for housing redevelopment as part of the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative? No, the city of Annapolis does not intend to acquire properties for housing redevelopment as part of this initiative. Is the city of Annapolis intending to subdivide homeowners' property as part of the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative? No, the city of Annapolis does not intend to subdivide homeowners' property through the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative. There's really no legal way we could do these kind of things.
Developer can.
Somebody owns their property can. I mean, the city,
Keep the zoning the same, it doesn't happen.
somebody could subdivide their property tomorrow.
But you have to allow for it.
Well, you
go
have to have a
variance.
certain amount.
Let me keep going through here. Let's say we'll get into that stuff. Is the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative encouraging more low-income housing? No, the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Project is not encouraging more low-income housing within the project area. And I'll just say, we have a low-income housing development on Forest Drive called the Willows that's under construction now. Robinwood is in the process of redeveloping. That is enough to really satisfy our low-income housing need in your area. Our focus is on what we call workforce housing. Is the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative encouraging more workforce housing? Yes. The Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative is encouraging more housing of similar character to the existing neighborhood to meet the needs of Annapolis's workforce population. Now, you're wondering what that means. Workforce population is defined as households earning between 80 and 120% of the area median income. That's the average income, which is statistically around $98,000 to $145,000 per household. That might be more than some of your households, but that is that 80 to 100% AMI, and we use that to understand how affordable is the housing in the city. We know from research that a lot of people are getting displaced from the city. A lot of people work in the city, can't afford to live here. It adds cars to our roadways. You have people commuting from Edgewater, Arnold, Crofton, Prince George's County, who knows? We want those people to be in a closer place to where they work. They don't have to drive as much. Takes cars off the roads. That's a big part of this.
According to your own statistics, our block is on the lower side of the average median income, which means our houses are already probably the most affordable, and they contain land.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
How is that by building, in other words, you're asking us to sacrifice our house
No,
or build additional housing.
Yeah.
We don't want to be landlords, we want land.
we're not asking anybody to do anything. We're trying to make sure that what happens next door to you is something that you want to see.
If you change the zoning, that's going to allow for developers to come in.
Developers can do something today. Hold on. Let me get through this.
After we're open, don't
Sir?
poo-poo that. That's the main aspect here. That once you allow for the rezoning, then we here are going to be put up with developers calling us all the time. They're going to pit us against each other. That's what happens every time these things happen. And the people who get displaced are the people who are the current property owners. And they have retirement plans, they have built their families here, and redevelopment in this fashion, when your city says, oh, we're washing our hands of it, that is true. But you're handing us over to developers.
Sir,
And that's what's going to happen.
Sir, that's not what we're doing here. But let me get through this.
Anybody could come and ask for a variance. You don't need to rezone. If that's your intent, then you don't need to rezone.
There's a lot of things that come out of zoning other than what you're talking about, and that is
the most negative aspect for the current property owners. And that will occur. Can you guarantee us that won't happen?
guarantee what?
I'm sorry, we really have to get going to the presentation. We all
How-
have
How many of you
to
want to continue on this vein so that we
You don't
understand?
want
He
to
might
see the
he might answer your
presentation.
questions as you
You don't want
go.
to see the presentation.
Let me try to finish the presentation, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. There's a lot of information here that I think you all would benefit from hearing. You know, there's certain information online that's been saying that we're trying to put Section 8 housing in your neighborhood. That's absolutely not true. No Section 8 housing is being mandated as part of the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Initiative. And in fact, Section 8 housing is a choice voucher program that a private property owner has to agree to. Your neighbor tomorrow could decide to have a Section 8 resident living in their home. That city has nothing to do with that. I just want to be clear about that. So anybody who's saying that there will be that this is part of the project is completely false. Let's talk about the project timeline for a sec. So we're at community workshop number 2 here in early May. We're planning on having another community workshop about a month from now in early June. We're in this kind of recommendation phase. We're going to be going to Planning Commission most likely in July. What we're trying to work towards is legislation that the City Council would support. That's who we get our direction from. The City Council wanted to see some change in the neighborhood. As planning staff, we work on something that the community would support, and we advise the City Council and the Planning Commission on what that should be. That's why we're here. We're not trying to force something on anybody. We're trying to hear your perspective. I know you don't have a problem being honest. We want to hear it. I'm being genuine right now. City Council legislation has its own process. Once legislation is introduced, it goes through a series of meetings at the City Council committees. We have like 6 different committees. They'll all probably want to look at this legislation and look at the impacts of it. And then ultimately, probably October is when the legislation would get a vote at the City Council. Now, a lot of this is happening candidly because we have an election in November. And we have City Council members who want to see something happen. And They want to see something that's balanced and fair to the neighborhood. And so we're on this trajectory here.
Lost all faith because of the gas and heat blower. Man, I'm just kidding. I don't have any faith.
Like I said, I appreciate the honesty. We've heard a lot already. So comments that you can read on the wall over there. We had probably 70 plus responses. I just pulled some here that I thought were interesting insights into the neighborhood, make it feel more like a neighborhood and less like a throughway, ability to build better housing, better lighting, make driving slower. Somebody wants clean streets and slow down traffic. Somebody says our street is very quiet and not vibrant enough. It would feel safer if there were more people, more activity. I want to help. It's just somebody in the neighborhood. All right, all right, all right. All right, all right. Traffic calming at Tyler and Hilltop Lane. Maybe you can all agree on that. Safe street crossing with at least flashing lights. Provide backlot access to deep lots for potential housing, duplex, fourplex, 4 apartment.
People live on the street. They live in Florida, maybe?
Remove dilapidated buildings and replace with pleasant and reasonably priced housing that fits the neighborhood character.
Do any of those people live on the street? That they have name, they live on the
Ma'am,
street?
we have a lot of responses from people in the neighborhood. And we got responses from people outside the neighborhood. That's one of the challenges. As a planner in this city, we put a survey out, we can't control who responds, but we did get a lot of, I'm going to keep.
Did not elicit.
Hi, sorry, just on the survey real quick. So for the people that did take the survey, they provided location data that was obviously optional. But we did provide a boundary within the city of Annapolis. A lot of the respondents that we had that took the survey, we don't give out the information of everybody that took the survey because we don't want someone saying this person said this, I'm gonna go get them. Because they are telling us like where they live. But the majority of the people that did take the survey live along the corridor. About 70 of them lived along the corridor, and there were respondents that either lived in Quiet Waters, they lived in Eastport, they lived in Ward 1. We had respondents that we didn't take those responses that people that were not in the immediate project boundary and use that to inform a lot of the things you're seeing here today. We worried everything and made sure that basically everything you're seeing came from responses that people that when they took our survey, they said, I live within a quarter mile of Tyler Avenue, basically.
So an extra 500 cars coming out there every day doesn't affect everybody in the city?
This is a neighborhood plan. I think the people who live in the study area, get out while you can. The people who live in our study area are going to be most impacted by anything that happens. We want to hear from people who live in the study area beyond anybody else, but just want to say the survey is one piece of our effort to get public input on this. It's not a scientific survey. Obviously, not every single resident responded to it. People responded to stuff that was on Nextdoor who don't even live in the neighborhood. So these are 2 charts that we pulled from the data. One was responses to what would improve Tyler Avenue the most. The 3 top responses were better sidewalks, better lighting, and more pedestrian crossings. What types of community spaces or amenities would you like to see more of? We had 3 responses that topped out new park space, wider sidewalks, and community gardens.
Nothing but speeding?
Well, these were just 2 questions about amenities, but there was an option to put an other response, and I think we did get a lot of response about speeding. Oh.
And the other response is right under.
Oh.
The majority of
trying to get
other
5 years to do something about that.
Other responses predominantly related to traffic calming measures, but also include cleanliness of the streetscape and street markings. So let's talk about your streetscape. We showed this image at the last meeting. It's pretty telling. This is your street today. People have to put signs up to get people to slow down. The sidewalk is 4 feet wide in most places. It's pushed right up against the curb. Doesn't make for a really nice street to walk on. This is kind of what it looks like in a section view. We'd have no street markings, so you basically have 16-foot wide lanes, which basically tells drivers they can go as fast as they want, and then the sidewalks are 4 feet wide.
Put more housing where the streets are not safe.
Say that again?
You want to put more housing where the streets aren't safe and more cars. It kind of doesn't make sense.
Actually, like having a neighborhood where like the lots are filled in and there's some activity, it does slow cars down, but that's not the point of this.
That became more dense, and the streets got safer from a vehicular traffic.
Speed bump would work.
It's all stuff. I mean, we've already had a number of deaths on our street.
Yeah, I mean, like the data, so for
The accidents.
the data we have for the city, you know, the predominance of traffic crashes and fatalities is on corridors that are low density, kind of suburban corridors, where basically cars aren't expecting to see a pedestrian or somebody on a bike, and you know, or the parked cars aren't marked, you know, and they don't expect to see a parked car, and that's the condition on Tyler Avenue today. And what we can do in the short term, which is like, hold on, just one sec. What we can do in the short term is something like this, and we've worked with Jeff. This was based on some study that our Department of Public Works did, where we could clarify the travel lanes. We can narrow them so that encourages people to slow down. So they'd be 10-foot travel lanes with a center line down the middle. We could add a parking lane on one side that would be striped so it's clear, delineated. So part of the problem today, somebody parks every once in a while, and so you're playing Frogger, you know, somebody who's driving 50 miles an hour down the street doesn't expect to see a parked car, right? So if you have that parking line there, they kind of recognize that that's the shoulder, that's not where they're supposed to be driving. We could have a buffer. Say that again?
So do radar more often, people, you know, the city will make a lot of money.
That's a comment that you could put that. I mean, we're not finished here, but yeah. So a buffer outside of that parking lane could be used as a bike lane, or just basically to, when somebody opens their car door, they're not going to hit traffic passing.
That's the best idea we've seen so far.
Okay, appreciate the vote of confidence. Sir, we're going to have a Q&A. I know a lot of people are interrupting. We're going to have a Q&A after this. No, the person behind you actually raised their hand. Novel concept.
Yeah. I'm the owner for the house for the sign, for the green.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm putting over there because it's true. People driving so fast in front of my house. They make many accidents.
Yeah.
Now they try to construct more house, more accidents is in the street.
Okay, so this idea that like, what?
Some people asked a question while everyone was speaking, and they asked why are we not promoting speed bumps here, and what led to what you're showing today? Why aren't speed bumps happening?
So I could try to answer that if you want to fill in, but city does not do, we do other things to slow people down, but our fire department does not like speed bumps. That is a major reason why we don't do speed bumps. I understand there used to be speed bumps on Tyler Avenue. So if you drive around town and you see places where we've changed the roadway to slow people down, we use these kind of horizontal infrastructure. They're called chicanes, and it basically forces somebody to do a little jog. That's more often the strategy that Public Works uses. So that's the policy today, and that's, did I get it right?
Yeah, and just to add to that, the speed humps provide a challenge for us for drainage because we depend upon the flow along the road. So the speed pumps will interfere with that. And also snow removal operations. You start getting 4 or 5 inches, you got a contractor coming through that's helping us plow snow. They don't know it's there, and they're terrible.
Well, the police and the fire trucks, and I'm all for them, they go down there, and the speed bump would deter them from getting to someone who needs help right away. So I really appreciate their bravery and their dedication. And that's important to me, to be able to let them travel from one point to the next and get there quickly and safely.
No, I agree. Well, let's say what this would look like if we do these short-term improvements. This is hard to see, but we have a big version of it on the table over there. What you're seeing is the center line stripe right here, the parking lane, and then the buffer line. And so at Woods, where we have the school crossing today, we can also do bump curb extensions, bump outs. They will also kind of help to slow down traffic. We're also going to, we're proposing to put a crossing at Janwall, which is also an important access to the school. So we're going to be working with Jeff and Public Works to advance these kind of immediate improvements. I think that's the intent. I mean, I can't say enough about having Jeff on board because, you know, the stuff, he was involved in the stuff on Hilltop Lane that has been pretty successful and just minimizing crashes there. And we have more capacity to do these types of projects. In the past, we just didn't have as much capacity on staff to knock out these kinds of immediate, and we have the budget. The City Council is putting up money to do these kind of demonstration traffic improvements to kind of prove that something works, and then we make it permanent. And that's the idea on Hilltop here with the flexi post and the quick curb is what it's called. It's really kind of a trend all over the country. Now, that may not be the best thing long term. What we're trying to do, so we're kind of hampered by the width of the street today. Like the city owns the street, but you know we have 32 feet approximately between the curbs, and then we have those sidewalks. We can't really do much more beyond that. But with the zoning, we could change the streetscape requirements. So if somebody does redevelop a house, they could provide a nicer sidewalk. They could provide a street tree. We could do a shared use path on one side that has space for bikes and pedestrians. That's what you're seeing right here. 6-foot sidewalk, 6-foot planting strip.
Property?
No, basically, we're doing this on West Street. If you go out and you look at like the Taco Bell, for example, or the Audi dealer, anything that's coming in on West Street, city is asking them to put in a nicer sidewalk with a planting strip, move the sidewalk away from the curb because it's a miserable place to walk. We could do the same on Tyler. It's just that we don't have a design in the city code for that. So it's like every time a development comes in, we're sort of doing it case by case. What we'd like to do for here is have a standard design that people like, that people agree on. And so if somebody redevelops a property, they have to do that. And then we start to piece together this sort of nicer streetscape over time. That's what we have to work with. I mean, the alternative is, you know, we go house to house and we ask you to donate or, you know, to be compensated for land. We're not going to do that. Like that's what you don't want, right? I mean, that's the only other option.
But it requires that somebody develops the land, or redevelops the land, which a lot of people don't want to do.
Agree. We cannot know when somebody is going to develop a property. I'm not a fortune teller, but
With the striping of the street.
What are you saying?
And the pedestrian walkways. That's good enough.
Yeah.
so let's talk about the dirty word of the day is apparently housing. Nobody wants more of it. This is the photo we showed.
So that means it's got to come from somewhere.
All right, hold on. We have situations like this in the neighborhood today. This is
Why?
This is
That's
someone
a working, that's a working piece of property there.
Yes.
Well, how are we allowing it?
I'm just showing it to say that there are opportunities to do things with the land that might be different than what's there today, that might be more beneficial to the neighborhood. It's obviously the person's who owns this property, it's their prerogative, whatever they want to do with it. But I don't know who owns it, and frankly, they could be sitting on it because the zoning is too limiting for what they want to do. I don't know. We're trying to, something I should have said at the very beginning that Casey told me to mention. We're inviting, ma'am, hold on just one sec. We're inviting anybody to come in and talk to us about what you would like to do with your property, if anything, what you would like to see with your neighborhood. It could be a virtual meeting, it could be in person. We've met with a handful of people already. We want you to reach out.
Together as a group and want to meet with you.
Well, sometimes people don't want to share their ideas in a group's environment. Some people do.
What if we do? What if we want to get representation?
That's fine. We can set up a group meeting. But that's kind of what we're doing here, right? So at the last meeting, we shared this sheet, which was an example of housing types that we, as planners, felt would fit in the neighborhood today. Some of these are actually in the neighborhood. We asked people to give us their preference on what they would like to see in the neighborhood in the future. Notice there are no large apartment buildings here.
No, there is this one apartment building there and I own it.
Oh, this one, yeah. Okay. So it's not a large apartment building, right? It looks like a couple people are interested in seeing. Yeah. Yeah, and look, it fits into the neighborhood. It's not making the neighborhood any worse than anything else in the neighborhood. And this is a building that has 6 units. The point is, and this is something the alderperson said first thing, when he asked us to work on this project. This is not about creating another Watergate Apartments. It's not about Admiral Farragut or some of our larger apartment complexes. This is about finding balanced, smaller housing that can fit within the neighborhood, that doesn't really change the look of the neighborhood, that people will support. That's basically all it is. And we shared this image, which I know was circulated online, and people think, we're gonna build this kind of stuff. This is still small in comparison to the Annapolis Town Center over here, but we're focusing on this range. Duplex, side by side, a fourplex, a courtyard maybe with tiny homes.
Are you against townhousing?
Absolutely not. That's a given. Single family house is a given. We're not, sorry.
I just read the gentleman, the most current one.
Can hear you.
I just read the general plan update and how they describe whether or not single-family homes are beneficial to the future of Annapolis. And there's very negative language in that plan. And I will pull it out and show it to everyone here if you want to see
I can guarantee you that we are not opposed to single-family homes. In fact, at the first meeting a month ago, we heard it loud and clear. People want to see more single-family homes.
None of the building that's going on currently in Annapolis is single-family house.
No.
It's all very dense townhouses, apartments. And you're talking about the city workers who you want to have live here. If you turn these back into townhouses and duplexes and so forth, these people are not going to have the opportunity to have a single-family house and have their children grow up in their own backyards. That's going to go away.
One thing we learned at the...
Hold on a second. Right now, our housing is affordable. Our average house right now sells for under $400,000. The average home right now is selling over $600,000 in Annapolis. Now, I did see what you guys put up as an example in the Portland Inlay. Well, they got rid of the single-family houses and put in tiny little units of 800 square feet of townhouses and apartments, and they made that affordable at $250,000, right? But that's not what we want. We like our single-family houses, and there should be an affordable option for single-family houses. And if we get the rezoning, where we get the developers to come in, that's going to get rid of the single-family housing. It will become extinct in a number of years.
I disagree 100%. The single-family house is a very desirable type of housing in the city. It's not going away. It is what people are building predominantly in the city today. Here's 2 examples in your neighborhood of single-family homes. They're dramatically different in size. Our zoning code doesn't discriminate. It simply says you need to build, and I'm going to get into this a bit more, but part of the reason why we're only seeing much larger houses built in the city today is the land costs are high, and somebody wants to build a house, has to recoup their investment, and so they build the biggest possible house, which is the most expensive house, and we don't get that kind of range that you're talking about. I mean, we did this analysis for the comprehensive plan where we looked at all of the variety of housing types that have defined the city over the last 400 years, and most of these are illegal today. And yet, this is the character of Annapolis, but most of our residential areas only allow for single-family homes, and it's partly why there hasn't been a lot of development in your neighborhood. Ultimately, we want to make Annapolis more Annapolis.
You're making it sound like that's a bad thing.
We hear from some people that would like to see it, but we're not going to make everybody happy with this project, but we're trying to find a compromise here that everybody will support. Community.
Are you saying that this is only if you sell your house, what you could build there?
No, you could sell your property to somebody and what they could do, but it's what you could do as the property owner.
Well, see, I'm confused. If I want to just keep my house the way it is, and I know you
don't have to do anything.
But if I sell it to someone, then that owner can do what he wants.
If it's reasonable.
Within the zoning guidelines.
Right, that you want to change. But what I'm saying is, we're an older population.
Yeah.
So, if I pass away and my kids sell my house, then somebody could take, and I have quite a big piece of property, and with the rezoning, they can do basically what they want.
It's a legit question. I mean, I'm going to get into that. The last section, I'm moving slowly because we keep asking all these questions, but they're good questions. I'm almost there. I'm almost at what you're talking about. So, community open space, prioritizing open space was another thing we talked about at the last meeting. We had a variety of community amenities that don't really exist in the neighborhood today, but could exist. Now, these can't
We have our own yards, we don't need it.
Okay, thanks. I'm seeing a theme. I'm seeing a theme in your.
Drug dealers there.
So here's just like one example, and I mentioned this before. I talked about this before. Here's your existing situation. You have a front yard. You have a tiny 4-foot sidewalk. In some cases, you have a fence that's like right up to that sidewalk. With the zoning changes, we could require that sidewalk to be a little bit wider, moved away from the curb, at a planting strip with street trees. We could go a step further and create a shared use path that would be a safe corridor for bikes or pedestrians. It would add a lot of value.
On a front yard or front yards or anything?
It would require people to use some of their front yard, but again, it's only if redevelopment happens. That's only it. It doesn't force anybody. It's only if redevelopment happens. So you stay in you're content with your property. You don't want anything to change. Nothing happens right in front of your home.
I mean, what you're gonna do with the streets and sidewalks, that's not gonna come onto my actual property.
No.
I thought you just said.
No, unless you redevelop your property. Nothing changes unless your property is redeveloped.
So the
Well, say a neighbor has theirs redeveloped, and they take part of their property in the front, and mine.
You're going to continue to have, yeah.
So its sidewalk's gonna go like this?
Yeah, you're going to have the same sidewalk you've always had, and this is unfortunately how things have to, yes, and you can see it on West Street today. It's like, it is not the most efficient way to do things, but because people are generally.
It's gonna be zigzag.
It'll be connected, but it'll be zigzag. Yes.
And, excuse me,
That's insane.
for the traffic guy.
Of the road, is there a way to
That's
just
insane.
add a couple feet onto the sidewalk and make the road?
That requires property owners to offer up that space. So that's
I'm not talking about cutting into people's yards, I'm talking about making the width of the street.
So something would go away, like we would lose parking. It's like if everybody, is content to lose all the parking, we could do something like that. But basically, or we could widen. There's a few things we can do, but let's talk about it when we have this open house. If you come over to the streetscape section, we can talk about the details of. There's actually a lot we could do. We're just providing an example to kind of get the juices flowing here, because
when you park on the street, your car gets hit.
Yeah.
So not interested in doing that.
So I have never been to an Annapolis meeting where the whole room was willing to give up street parking, but this might be one of those rooms. I don't know, like, oh, no, okay.
What about a speed camera? We didn't talk about that.
Total possibility. It's a great comment to leave on our sheets, yeah. I mean, so when we talk about zoning, this is the last section. We're almost there, and then we can get into our question and answer session, which we've already. I want to focus on density. That's the thing that gets most of the attention when we talk about zoning. I mean, zoning addresses all of these criteria. Minimum lot sizes, the setbacks in your front and backyard and side, what uses are allowed. Today it's just residential use on the corridor. Density is how many units. Height, obvious, parking and access to site design or lot coverage, how much paved area are you allowed to have, and then subdivision, how can you subdivide your property. Now, this is a striking chart I wanted to share. It's a national trend. This is data across the United States that basically shows the decline of smaller starter home construction from 1973 to 2021. Smaller homes being homes less than 1,400 square feet, which is still a pretty big house, right? It's striking. We're not building small houses anymore. There's a need for them. People can't afford the big houses that are getting built in Annapolis, but we're not building them. And part of that is because the zoning today is very restrictive. The land costs are very high in the city. The zoning guidelines are not married to the need that we have in the city, and people are getting forced out of the city, or family members can't move into the city to be closer to family. I mean, there's a million scenarios, but this is the predominant zoning along the Tyler Avenue corridor today. I'll explain these graphics. R2, it's relatively low density. It basically says you can only do a single-family detached house on a 5,400 square foot lot, basically 50 by 100. Now, what we're showing here are some of these long lots, like 50 by 300. That's something that exists in quite a few properties on Tyler Avenue. So you have this existing condition on the far left. By right, you could add a granny flat in the back. That's something our city council approved a couple years ago. It has to be 800 square feet. It can just be, like an accessory dwelling unit is the technical term, but it's basically just a small apartment in the back, additional dwelling unit. So, it has to be kind of subordinate to the primary residence. It can't be a separate, like, meter, for example. You could build a McMansion. You could totally build out your entire site as long as you keep a 30-foot backyard, 6 feet side yards, and a 25-foot front yard. That could happen today. It probably won't based on the economics and so forth, but you could build 3 single-family houses today with the same setback requirements. Now, I'm not showing driveways and parking here, but you can imagine how unlikely this would probably be. We haven't seen it really, but you'd have to build an extra long driveway, or you'd have to have parking somewhere in between these houses. It's not a scenario I would expect to see, but technically somebody could do it. And if they did, those houses would probably be in the $600,000 range. They'd build as big as possible. And then you could do that and add a back apartment on all of those. And that's basically what you could do with the R2 zoning today. But let's look at...
While he's still on this slide for a second, along Tyler Ave, there's the technical term for it is called a flag lot, where there's a really long driveway and there's a house in the back. So along Tyler Ave proper, in between Hilltop and Forest, there are those, really long lots where somebody has subdivided their property already. They've existed for decades now, where there's a house on the front, there's a middle house, and there's a house all the way in the back, and they all share a driveway. And the one all the way in the back is the one that's got this really long property line where it's the house in the back and then their driveway is everything else. But that's kind of like, since you live along the corridor, that's kind of a way to picture this third example as something that can already happen by right.
Right.
Just as an example to help you understand.
So let's let's look at another scenario. So we're calling this improved zoning because it's a really modest change, but it's basically saying, all right, this is your current house on Tyler Avenue today. You all probably recognize it. Maybe it belongs to somebody here. We can't really build anything too narrow today. These are houses on Bay Ridge Avenue. They're nice houses. They're not far from here near the Eastport Shopping Center. They're on smaller narrower lots. They actually go pretty far back, but they're narrow houses. They have an alleyway in between. They have a front yard. We can't do that today. We could do side-by-side duplexes with, modestly improved zoning. This is like synonymous with Annapolis, this kind of house. I mean, you see it everywhere, mostly illegal for most of the city. It makes no sense to me, but there's a few of these in your neighborhood, In fact, I know somebody who lives in one, something like that. But I won't name names. And then the stacked duplex, it looks almost identical to a single-family home. The only giveaway is that it's got 2 mailboxes there. So you can imagine you walk through the front door, there's a stair that goes up to an apartment upstairs, and there's a lot of those in the city today. They're also mostly illegal because they preceded our zoning today. And this is kind of the ask to you all. It's like making modest changes like this to the zoning would enable properties to develop in a way that creates a greater variety of housing that could be more affordable to more households and more incomes. I mean, this is a scenario where if somebody owns 2 lots, they could create a situation with a courtyard in the middle. It's an amenity space for the residents, if they so choose. But by basically tweaking some of the density requirements, you can open up opportunities that really don't exist today.
But that's not opening up opportunities to us. We'd have to pay for it, right? We can't afford it.
I'm not going to be able to convince you.
And once again, that's going to open it up to developers, and we're going to be subject to predatory developers. Those are the people that are going to have the capacity and the capital to do this. We're not the beneficiaries of that, right? In fact, we're going to be taking advantage. And you're pushing this density. Why? Do you not like the fact that people have property?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with it, sir. I mean, my job as
Let's not take it away from you. The city does not want people to have these larger lots, and they want to use it for additional.
No, sir, we've heard from people who have those lots who want to do something with them. Not everybody shares the same opinion as you. Maybe people do, but we've heard from plenty of people who would like more flexibility to do. We talked to somebody who wants to build a house for her son. She has to run power and utilities from the street to a back house that she wants to build. It's cost prohibitive to do that unless you could put 2 or 3 units in that new house. I mean, that's a true story.
Because we just had our house rebuilt, and we had to pay.
I don't want to argue at this point. I just want to kind of get through the presentation and get into the Q&A.
That's part of the Q&A.
We're not there. Thank you. This is an image from somewhere else that I think represents what might be possible. You may all not agree on that this looks good or this is appropriate for your street, but most of this could not be built today based on the zoning. And it's just another way to visualize what could happen. The houses aren't any bigger than what's there today, but they accommodate some more types of households that can't afford to live in the city, that might want to live here, more family members perhaps. It's a way of making the neighborhood more inclusive. And then finally, I know this is going to get a lot of attention. We have a printout of this over there at the end of the tables, and we certainly want your input. But every zoning district in the city has a purpose statement. That's really the first thing you start with. You have to define what's the purpose of this zoning, what are you trying to achieve. Now, not every zoning district really tries to clarify the goals that it's trying to achieve. We want to do this one a little differently. We want to be upfront and clear about what is this zoning district intended to do. I'll just read it for the benefit of everybody. The purpose of the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Overlay Zoning District is to improve conditions along the Tyler Avenue corridor and ensure compatibility of new development with existing properties through guidelines for streetscape enhancement, tree canopy expansion, community open space, and housing options designed to protect neighborhood character while also addressing community needs. New development within the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Overlay District is characterized by the following. Building heights are limited to 2.5 stories or 35 feet, which is exactly what they are today in the R2 zoning and the R3. Land uses include single-family detached dwelling units, townhomes, and small multifamily buildings for 2, 3, or 4 units. Streetscape areas designed for safe pedestrian, bicyclist, and transit use. Well-integrated and functional open space areas designed for the benefit of residents and connected to adjacent open space as much as possible. We want to know if this is acceptable to you. This is something that would guide our decision-making on how to tweak the zoning guidelines. I know somebody who may not want any of this, but some of you might. And we think this is a reasonable, incremental change to the zoning. That's all we're trying to do. This is not about turning your neighborhood into something you won't recognize. This is about filling in some of the opportunities on your street. And with that, I have 2 more slides. Hold on. Just a reminder about our schedule here. Again, we're going to have another meeting a month from now, early June. It's probably going to be back here, although Tyler Heights Elementary was great. They had a very challenging evening schedule, so we couldn't get in there. But the website, and you'll get emails will go out, and then series of hearings once we have some kind of legislation that will be public and very transparent. And then again, reminder to check out the website for all the updates. This presentation will be on that. On Thursday evening, we're going to share this same presentation with our Planning Commission. That's a volunteer body that advises the City Council. Everything has to go through Planning Commission. They're just fellow residents. And that's it. Now we're ready for the Q&A.
And 1 second right before that. Hopefully, you all signed in and gave us an email so you can stay up to date with this. We want to be able to inform all of you every time something's happening. We have an email list that has about 80 people on it already, so we are making sure that everyone's involved. If you have any comments about anything you've seen today, please, if the Q&A runs too long and you have something that you want to say to us, please feel free to walk around the room and leave a post-it note on anything, whether it's the purpose statement, whether it has something to do with the project timeline, the goals, anything that you've seen today. Please feel free to get up and leave a sticky note and leave a comment. That's how we are going to be recording a lot of the comments that you all are giving today. The video is also being recorded and it's going to be published after the meeting as well. So if you forgot something or want to listen to the presentation all over again, it will be on the website.
Yeah, I just want to second what he said. We have half hour left in this room. If folks want to get up and leave comments, you're more than welcome to, but I'll stay here and answer questions. And sir, you've had your hand up.
How would the rezoning affect our property taxes?
Well, so generally, it's hard to predict, but any improvement to a neighborhood raises property values. I mean, that's just a general rule. Any improvement generally raises property values. Now, elected officials can determine whether that rate changes. That rate hasn't changed in some years, but property values continue to go up because we live in a place that a lot of people want to live in, and it's, people are banging down doors to move here. So if we make improvements to the streetscape, property values will probably go up. We can't really...
We don't want those improvements. Putting the lines in the street is good enough.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I got a concern about, you said the widening of the street, and can you tell me more about the zigzag sidewalk? My property is 75 feet wide, okay? Yeah, it's 300 feet long, there's property in the back, but I have a pool there for the grandkids, whatnot, so I have no place to build. But I'm concerned about the widening of the street, and you said the sidewalk will be zigzag, say somebody developed something next to me, and I don't. So you're guaranteeing that the city can't take any of my front property.
Right, I guarantee...
So the sidewalk would be zigzag.
The goal would be to keep the sidewalk connected, but it would basically, at the edge of your property, it would basically go diagonal and connect to a sidewalk that's pushed away from the curb.
That would look very good.
It's not my preference either, but...
They're guaranteed, though, that the city cannot take any of my front property.
We are not taking property away. Now, yes, right, sir. I'll answer you and then I'll move over here. Yeah. Okay, go for it.
So, a question and a statement.
Okay.
Question, and then I'll follow the statement, you can answer the question.
Gotta stand up, we can't hear you.
Stand up.
First question, the question is, this rezoning is going to change the density allowable from what it currently is, 2.28 to 8, correct?
2.2.
Units per acre.
Oh, well, today.
Well, that's what your document says.
So the zoning currently allows for a density of 8 units per acre.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, that's what the
We're-
R2 zoning allows for 8 units per acre.
So what are you changing it to?
So we're trying to figure that out right now. Now,
So you're proposing a zoning change of what you don't know what the hell it is. That makes absolutely no sense.
see, that's why we're here. So let me,
But no, I'm not finishing my question.
hold on just one sec. What I think you're referring to, that 2.28, that's the density today that is about a quarter of what's allowed. Yeah, so-
Okay. So, and the next thing is this just a exercise in the Delphi technique, where this is already predetermined because of the plan, the general plan that's been adopted, and that we're going to get high density shoved down our throats no matter what? Is the council just going to run right over this whole community regardless?
Yeah.
You know why I'm asking that question? Because the council just did that with the drive-through, the ban on drive-throughs. So for 2 months, seniors and people with mobility issues and small businesses testified before commissions, committees, and the city council in opposition to this council's banning of drive-throughs in support of this Plan 2040 nonsense. And the entire city council heard this. 3 of the council members actually heard the public's outcry. And one of the council members said, this smacks of discrimination against seniors, folks with disabilities, and parents with children. But the 6 gentlemen on the council went ahead, regardless of the input, and voted it through because it's in alignment with Eric's plan. So that's what I'm concerned about. Were you actually going to hear this community? Because you didn't. You guys didn't hear all the people opposed to the ban on drive-throughs. So that's a demonstration that you won't hear them now.
Exactly.
So I can assure you that, so there is nothing in our presentation today that talks about high density anything. I can assure you that that is not going to be part of this. That was a directive we got from our alderperson. That is not the goal here. What you see here is what we're trying to do, and it's all stuff that looks like it works with your neighborhood. It meshes with what's here today.
Hi again. So, because of the survey, we know a lot of people that are here today haven't ever participated in the planning process before.
We didn't know about it.
I know.
It's not a judgment. It's not a judgment.
And the survey was propaganda questions that were Pollyanna, not addressing our needs.
have never participated in a planning project ever. So, real quick, when we do plans like the comprehensive plan or the public water access plan that's currently in the process,
The smart city?
public water access is parks.
Yeah.
But so when we did the public water access plan, we did meetings here within the past year, and when we do these meetings and we hold them and people give us feedback, that helps to guide a lot of the recommendations that we implement or that we recommend for the planning process. So whether it's someone saying, as an example for the public water access plan, that's a part, but it's not a part. We forgot this part. They give us a comment and say, oh, we forgot this part that we forgot to put in the plan. We should include that. Or if it's a private part that is just existing in the city, we put it in the plan, and they might say, well, we don't want this private part if it's owned by somebody. We don't want that in the plan. We say, okay, well, that guides our recommendations. We're going to pull that out, actually, and that's actually been a part of the public water access plan. So that's kind of what we're looking from you all today is, help guide our recommendations. That's why we need a lot of the comments on the sticky notes to help us guide the recommendations about whether if, when we did the previous meeting, we went into it knowing we don't want apartment complexes. It was in the survey and people said, well, we don't want to see apartment complexes. And we didn't come to you today saying, we're going to put a bunch of apartment complexes up.
We just want something to help us to speakers.
There was a question here. Sir, you've been having, he's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, I had a question. You mentioned earlier in your presentation that there is a budget that might be allocated. What's the, I mean, has that been what's the estimate of what has been looked at as far as allocating to this project?
Well, for streetscape, so the streetscape budget is like, you know, year after year, it's, I don't know, like it's, so the budget process is happening right now for the council to approve by June. I don't know, it's like 100,000 a year for traffic safety improvements or something. I mean, but for that we have a roadway, so we have a paving budget that's like in the millions, but in terms of doing like temporary tweaks to the roadway, they're more cost effective.
In and out of our driveways when all this is going on.
It's all coordinated with homeowners.
And then my last question is, thank you. My last question is what is the projection of population increase by bringing in, getting the rezoning, and you can build smaller houses? Obviously, you're going to have an influx of more people, I'm assuming. Has that been projected out as far as how many people you're going to put on Tyler if you can get what you need on the rezone?
We're going to look at that, but we haven't, because we haven't really fixed on like what should that appropriate density be. We don't have any kind of projection yet, but like we do projections citywide as part of a comprehensive plan, you know, and it's basically looking at the next 20 years, and it's pretty modest growth. I mean, see, it's partly because we don't have a lot of additional land to build on. You know, we're not going to be adding, you know, anything more than 3 stories in this town is like gets a rise out of people. You know, we just don't build big stuff here, and it's frankly going to be a pretty modest increase in my opinion. I mean, that's, yeah. Ma'am?
City representative, employee, contractor, advisor, consultant, or legal representative discuss the Tyler overlay project with the developer, builder, or their representatives at this point.
What's that from? What do you
The question is, has a city representative, maybe somebody like you, an employee of the city, a contractor of the city, an advisor of the city, a consultant, or legal representative of the city, talk to any developer or builder at any point in time about the Tyler overlay project?
I can't say whether anybody, we'll be meeting with homeowners as part of this project. Ma'am?
How can you not know that? Geez.
First of all, a lot of us are very familiar with the Planning and Zoning Committee. I started fighting change. I've lived in my house for 30 years. I have a copy of the 2009 comprehensive plan and the next one and the next one, and I have read them. First of all, they rarely get fulfilled. You know, they are some idea on paper, and then money talks. And there is nothing. First of all, I want to know where Dewan is. Where is our ward person? And I campaign for him. I'm just saying, you're going on the word of one person who I have not talked to Dewan about changing my neighborhood. My only complaint is the speed. And there are simple solutions to that. I went down to the picture today of where the first sign that says 25 miles an hour from Forest Drive. And it's past this is a neighborhood watch, it's past the bus stop, and it's hidden by a tree. So how are people supposed to know they're coming off a 40 mile an hour? Simple signage.
That's all we're looking for.
That's what we want. And we want stop signs with police enforcement. You put 4-way stops at Janwall, or 3-way stop at Janwall, and all the other streets, and a cop to enforce it, and the speed will slow down. I am in my front yard every day. The kids walking home from school have no problem walking home from school. We don't need wider sidewalks, and the whole thing of the zigzag is just, you know, that's like speed bumps for people in wheelchairs. You know, I mean, that is just a ridiculous idea.
I mean, what part of the city?
You know, and they had been trying.
That's totally legitimate input that I hope you'll share on the sheets. You know, like, that's what we're trying to collect.
Look at the police reports, for God's sakes. How
I
many
have
accidents we have.
the accident reports because when they tried to do Royal Farms, well, this started in 2024,
Right.
when they rezoned, and they rezoned up the street commercial because Dean and DeLuca was going to have the market house, and we thought that the planning and zoning said the neighborhood has not changed, we should not rezone this commercial, and the council did it anyway because of money.
Money.
You know, and developers.
I'm gonna have to just
And
keep
if
moving.
you open this, if you open the neighborhood up to developers, it is going to change the whole neighborhood. We live there, we don't want trees. People should plant trees or not take down trees on their property. You don't need to.
So development is going to happen whether we do anything or not. We're just trying to. Oh, hold on. This gentleman over here has had his hand up for a very long time.
Position, you're here to
Sir.
to learn about the project. Now
Sir.
you say that
Ma'am,
you're gonna
ma'am,
do
hold on.
regardless we
We
say,
want people to
right?
raise their hands,
You just
please.
say that. You're gonna do regardless you say. Would you say? You just say that right.
Please, ma'am. Sir, your question?
I have a question. We've gone through this whole presentation, and I haven't heard any mention of the problem with parking. And parking is a huge issue in this city. And we're talking about all this redesigning this part of the city. We live adjacent to the city. What I know is that we have single family homes that have 7 cars that are parked in front of the house or in the driveway. And that must be happening all over the city. And I never hear is there a tandem effort to address the issue of parking in Annapolis? You know, all that development along Forest Drive, where are all those people going to park?
So there is effort to address it, and it's case by case. Jeff handles a lot of this stuff. It's happening all over the city. You're right, and it's very complicated. You know, basically, these are public streets. Today we have parking area on Tyler Avenue. I showed you a design. Sir, hold on a second. I showed you a design that takes parking away from one side of the street to try to calibrate the way the street is designed to make it safer. That's one option. We could just basically paint the entire curb red and say no parking at all. I mean, that's another option. It's hard to get to a balance, right? It's hard to get to a balance.
Part of what's being addressed by this entire.
It is. And that's what
wasn't a part of the presentation.
Well, it was in the streetscape images, but it's part of the holistic street design. I mean, basically marking the parking area on one side, taking away from the other side, that was trying to address what you're talking about. Now, I mean, your point is, do people have the right to park, 6 cars? I mean, there's some legal issues to that. So I mean, we could have a parking district, and people could have to.
The change of the zoning is a breach of contract for all of us. Because, excuse me one second, because our mortgages, our deeds, our surveys, and our permits are right now written as R2 zoning. So to change it is a breach of contract.
I'm going to go to this question.
And we don't know the implications
I'm actually really
yet.
interested, because we have the traffic engineer here as well. We've seen a couple of kind of temporary installations. Some of them look very similar to what you had up on the screen earlier at the corner of President and Madison, I believe, with the painted curb cutouts and some temporary yellow plastic bits in the middle of Tyler Avenue and up and down some other parts of the street. What result has the city seen after these, and is it something that y'all are considering incorporating more permanently if the result is positive?
Yes. So, basically we have a proposal for a hike-a-bike trail along Hilltop. Right along here, it's going to go
Sorry, a bike.
all the way down to Bay Ridge. Because of that, we're going to do what's called a road diet. So we're going to take some of the roadway away so that we can put the hiker-biker in. because we don't have enough right of way to do it on the people's property, so we're gonna do it that way. When we do that, all the lanes are gonna get kind of narrowed, shifted around, so then all the traffic coming out there has to move. So we have to make sure that all of that's done at the same time. So we have a very large project that we're looking at doing that's gonna do all that. So I want to collect data to see how the speeds are now, as opposed to before we put all that in. I have a list of about 5 other locations I have to do first. So in about 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks, I'm going to be collecting data out here to see how well that's performed. So a lot of favorable feedback on this all over the city. People will come to us and point to Hilltop and say, I want what they got. So they all like it. So it seems like it's a very positive thing. So the intent is to make it permanent in the near future.
Why hasn't anything been done about the speeding in the last 5 years, say? You know what I mean? I'm trying to get the city to do something about, people go 70 miles an hour, and nothing's done.
I can't answer that because I've never been here since January 2nd. So, but,
No, everybody up there's laughing, but we're not laughing.
now, there was a study done along Tyler, that portion between Hilltop and Forest.
And they get up to 70 miles an hour, just that short couple blocks, that's how fast they go. And you go like this and tell them to slow down, and they laugh and they go faster.
The average speed through there is about 45. So that's way too high.
You gotta be kidding me.
Now, we put out road tubes and they were out for a week. So that average over the week was about 45 miles.
But even that's...
I know how fast people go, it's 60 or 70 miles an hour.
So the high speeds were up there, I will admit, but that's just...
Maybe some people actually go to speed limit, but the other ones go 60 or 70, and it equals out to 45.
So the speed limit...
That was the drug dealer.
Hold on, folks. So the average speed was about 45. I will say though, the crashes were there. The predominant crash was head-ons, side swipes, and parked vehicles. And there was also an unusually high number of alcohol-related crashes. So, and a lot of them were occurring late at night. There was a fatality there that happened like at 1:30 in the morning. The car hit another car overturned, the passenger died. The driver got out and ran away.
In front of my house.
That one
But I
happened
go
at
out
like
and cut
7
the
o'clock
grass
in
or
the
sweep the
evening.
sidewalk, and
was
cars are
It was
flying
at
by
7
70
o'clock
miles an hour.
in November. I remember it. It was right down the street from my house.
So I thought it was late night. But anyway, so those are the things that we're trying to face.
I'll get you.
With what we're proposing here, by taking the parking and putting it on one side, and narrowing the lanes down and marking them,
And the zigzag sidewalks.
the vehicle crashes, it's going to really reduce the vehicle crashes. So that's what I'm after first, and then we can talk further about addressing the speed.
Let's go to this woman here, and then I got you in the back there. Ma'am?
Okay, so hypothetically speaking, if nobody sold their property for, let's say, 10 years, then no development will happen for 10 years?
Say, if nobody sells their property?
None of us sell our property.
No, I mean, I've met people on the corridor who...
No, wait. Just, it's a hypothetical situation. If no one on that corridor, the Tyler corridor, sells their property, does that mean, let's say for 10 years, even though you've met people that want to sell, does that mean...
No, that's, all right, that's not what I was saying.
No, but just, let me...
I'm hearing you.
If nobody sells their property for a space of time, I'm just coming up with 10 years, does that mean no development will follow because developers won't come in and, I mean, are things that are going to happen even if we all stay?
Yeah, like your neighbor, you have some neighbors who want to change their properties today,
Right, but
even without selling.
No, I understand that. I completely understand that, but my point is, and it's hypothetical, this is not real, but if nobody sold their property, okay, then no changes would be made other than improvements to the road, is that correct?
No. There's a common misconception that the city can control what, it's a great question. There's a common misconception that the city can control what private property owners choose to do. Like, you have neighbors today who will change their properties in the coming year and based on the zoning we have today, and they might build a much bigger house.
Yes,
And that could have,
I understand.
and that's...
Guys, what happens?
If nothing's done, if
Nothing's
nobody
changed.
sells the property, is everything staying the same? is what she's asking.
You guys do.
No, we're still going to do some of these improvements to the streetscape.
Will there then still be improvements?
No, yeah, we're focused on the streetscape above all first. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do here. But there's an obvious opportunity to do other things. Ma'am in the back, sorry, you've been waiting a long time.
In the beginning, you said you've got surveys answered by Eastport people. I'm in Eastport, she's in Eastport. Ultimately, all the traffic affects everybody in the Annapolis area, peninsula. Ultimately, what's the goal of how many residents you plan on adding with this project? And AI generated, fabulous. Yes, the government can come and legally take private property through a process called eminent domain.
That is not part of this project. There's a dilapidated, folks, there's a dilapidated gas station on West Street that has been sitting vacant for more than 10 years. That is a nuisance, a circumstance that might entertain that. This is there's nothing about this project that is entertaining anything like that.
That's fair, but ultimately, what is the goal of how many residences you all would like to
I don't, that's not, what we're trying to do, so we don't have a number, we're not trying to increase the population more than what is naturally, we're trying to provide housing options that allow people to live there, but I can't really anticipate that. That's, sir.
Eric, is it safe to say, at this juncture of the planning process, that one, we could, under current density, under allowable zone, increase the number of units that could occur without any increase in or upzoning? That's fair to say, correct? So it's also fair to say that at this point in the planning process, the staff is not recommending any upzoning of this corridor.
That is not, so when you say upzoning, so.
That is changing from R2 to say R3 or R4 or R5.
So no, what we're trying to do is create a new zoning district that is appropriate for Tyler Avenue. The zoning, the resident.
I'm saying what's appropriate.
No, you are.
No, you're not listening to us.
I've been here listening for 90 minutes.
I do not comprehend what you're saying.
She had a good
question, and I didn't understand your answer.
Hold on, folks.
In the two sessions that you've had so far, the one at Tyler Heights and today, that you're still in the process of getting community input.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it's also fair to say that until you complete that process of getting community input, you haven't finalized any recommendations to the planning commission or to the council.
That is 100% correct.
That is correct.
That is 100%.
But you also said the city's going to do.
Sir, stop interrupting people.
This is the way the planning process works. Okay? You come up and you ask the stakeholders, which are the people that's going to be affected by this process, to contribute ideas and commentary. They take that and they form their final recommendations. We still have an opportunity to present any opposition to these recommendations to the planning commission and then ultimately to the council.
I agree, it makes a lot of sense.
That is absolutely correct.
It doesn't behoove any of us to constantly rate staff for trying to do what they're mandated to do through the comprehensive planning process.
Okay, but he also said, correct, that the city's going to do it anyways.
No, he didn't say that.
Yes, he did.
He did not say that. He is proposing ideas. He is proposing ideas, right? And he's trying to get our input.
So let me restate again how this process moves forward. We're collecting input that would go into legislation that city council has to advance, that planning commission has to support. We could come to legislation, frankly, we could realize that there just isn't support for anything here, and we just don't do anything. City council has to advance something they feel comfortable, has votes, that is a good thing for the city. All we're doing is advising them on that.
Could you answer her question again? I didn't understand your answer.
Hold on, ma'am. Her question was, hypothetically speaking, if none of the current homeowners choose to sell their property in the next 10 years, will anything change?
And no, right, and no development.
No, will any development happen? And my answer was, no. There are property owners or homeowners in your neighborhood today who would like to build an additional house for a family member or a friend, and they're limited by the zoning, and they might choose to do that with our current zoning if they have to, or they might be able to do something different if the zoning changes. That we cannot control. As a city, like, we can guide that development to be in keeping with the neighborhood you have today, and that's what we're here for.
But her question was, if they decided not to, nobody sold, then nothing would change. But the
I can't guarantee.
No, it was a hypothetical. We're not asking you to guarantee it. It's just,
we're not asking you to guarantee it.
I get that it's a hypothetical, but what I'm saying is it's very hard to answer that because there's so much that's unpredictable. I mean, I'm not a fortune teller. Like I can't.
Nobody sold.
Nobody sold or developed.
Okay,
ma'am.
Yes.
The thing you have to realize that Annapolis is being treated by the drive-through. The population say no. It was there. They vote again. They didn't want it, but then they vote in time. They vote anyway. Until today, we could not have our own home in Annapolis. They passed the law. No, they drive-through. Happened with that. They didn't hear the population. Also, they did the same thing for the blow, the wind blow. The wind blow.
That's not these guys.
Yeah, ma'am, I can't, I wrote a staff report on the drive-throughs that was not encouraging them to do that. I can't control city council. I'm a staff person. We advise city council. We have an elected body that represents us. We live in a democracy. We know this stuff. And city council will vote on the things that they think are good and best for the city. And that's...
Leslie has
Sir.
a question.
I'll repeat the question.
Let's say I own that apartment building over there.
Yeah,
By
yeah.
changing your zoning, I'm going to be able to build something behind my apartment building?
Potentially, we're not sure what, we have to figure out what the right balance is, but we know we have these enormous lots that are, have a tiny house in the front and just little house on the prairie, right?
But
And
by changing the zoning,
we're
I
trying,
might be able to do that.
possibly, yeah. I mean, that's part of it, but we don't know.
That might be a good thing for me.
Why do you
So the question was, the gentleman owns a 4-apartment complex that you all probably know on Tyler, and he's asking if the zoning would allow him to do something else with the back part of his property. And I said, yeah, potentially, that's what we're looking at, but we haven't figured out what's that right balance. But
well, that's exactly what we don't want is people coming in and looking to do that with every piece of property. So it matters to us.
I mean, you all, the ones who are here tonight, you all get that, I don't know, how many people, I assume everybody here owns property? Okay. So you have a tremendous amount of influence on what happens in your neighborhood. And that's why and if you don't want to see anything change, you came out to voice that.
And that works for him.
Leslie.
I'm just going to say, for me, sitting here listening to everything, there's a lot of things that I would like. I certainly would like a beautiful cityscape street, but it's not really important to me. Important to me is that we understand If we're talking about rezoning here, right now, this is the complete darkest thing in my mind. We're R2 right now, we all understand the potential for that, we can get variances to that if we want to build. Most of us don't. And the city tax bracket that we're in now is important to me, right? That alone could squeeze some of the property owners out. I'm now on a fixed income and retired. I worked my whole life to pay for that beautiful, long piece of land that I feel very blessed to have, right? But I feel like there's a whole missing ingredient here. What are we proposing on the zoning? Is it going to go from 8 to 32?
No, like this is the best summary for right now. This is the best thing I can provide for what we're looking at doing. And I just want you, we have a big sheet over here. We have a few minutes left. You can look at it up close. We're saying we don't want to change the building heights from what they are allowed today.
I'm talking about occupancy per acre on the rezone. Like if we're at 8 per acre now, and it's in outer space what we're rezoning to, I find that a variable that we all need to know. Because that's going to be what the basis of our taxes are going to be. So the basis of how many more people move into our neighborhood, and that's in outer space right now.
Yeah.
Right now we're at 8, and I think most of us would say we're okay with that. If you want to build a little grandma dwelling in the back, hey, have a nice day. But we don't want people coming in every single lot trying to buy 2 or 3 lots together, right? I mean,
people have already done that.
Well, what I'm saying is, yeah, but it's kind of okay right now, but there's an abstract number that's not being told to us. The ultimate rezoning number is what?
When we come back to this, do another meeting in June, we'll have some more precise numbers. As the gentleman said, we are still in this fact-finding phase. We're hearing you, and we're trying to find what are those correct numbers. That's really all we're here to do. We're really trying to be as transparent as possible. And I appreciate you having some trust in us because we're professionals. The meeting is basically over. We can have some informal Q&A, but we're going to be kicked out. Our meeting ended at 7:30. I would encourage everybody to leave comments on the sheets before you leave.